Welcome to the No Ideas original podcast featuring Shannon and Mr. Rob. How you doing, Rob? You enjoying your Friday?
Yes, sir, man. It is Friday again, and I'm always looking forward to the weekend. Um, I'm feeling great, man. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. You know why I'm excited? Because tomorrow we get to go to that brunch
Oh
and
yes,
and do
shout out
some,
to
do some
Paul.
networking with baby Paul. But today's show to me is it's a special show because it's a topic that I'm very interested in, and also because we have the opportunity of having Miss Jalisa Edwards on. And Jalisa, and I had an opportunity to work together as colleagues some time ago. In another life, I was a director at a social service agency providing services to kids and parents. We had an evidence-based program that we both worked in where we were trying to prevent kids from going to foster care. And another side of that program was actually reuniting kids with their parents.
Shout out.
And, I met Julissa at the start of her career. Start of, I guess, her clinical career. And I've had an opportunity to see her grow as a clinician. So I'm very, very pleased to bring on our guest today, Jalisa Edwards, mindset coach. Hi, Jalisa. Good to see
Hi,
you.
how are you guys? Great to see
So
you.
well.
Great to see you also. Let's get right into it. So, tell us a little bit about your clinical background and what made you decide to become a mindset coach.
Yeah. So, when you were giving that introduction, Sean, I was just like, damn, like that was such a long time ago. And like hearing all those those like fancy clinical words, I'm like, damn, like that was like ages ago. But beautiful, I thank all of my opportunities that have led me here today. So a little bit about me. Yes. So I went to school, got my master's in mental health counseling, became a licensed psychotherapist, and I practiced all the way until now. Somewhere throughout my journey, I found out that what I was doing in my sessions was a lot more coaching than clinical therapy, and I'll go into the differences in a little bit. And when I learned more about coaching, I was like, yeah, this is me. Like this is what I love to do. I love to hold people accountable. I like to push them. I have a very very much competitive mentality that I loved within, I'm so like competitive within myself and I love to push others. And that's more what coaching is in a sense of, like pushing others to their greatest lengths. Not that
Right.
therapy is not, but therapy has a slower approach, rightfully so, to help us heal and really like understand our traumas and things of that sort. Where coaching, you do that just at a little bit of a faster pace for those that I assess and can be held to that level or that pace of healing, recognition, and being able to move forward from those things.
Mm.
So, yeah, I when I learned about coaching and then online coaching was such a blessing for me and my family. I was like, hell yeah, I want to do online coaching. I get to have clients all over the world, which like I literally have clients all over the US, even some clients in Asia.
Right.
And yeah, it's great. It's beautiful
Wow.
what like Instagram can do. Right. And so I knew that this was the way for me, especially with the pandemic. That was really the birth of
Right.
my business.
Mm.
Everything was online anyway. So I was like, let's give this a shot. And I had success and I was like, let's do it. Let's keep doing this online thing. And it's opened the world to so many, beautiful opportunities for me. So that's a little bit about my journey and how I am today. Yeah.
So what is it? What's a day like for a psychotherapist?
Yeah. So I'll say a traditional psychotherapist, like I used to be, would be, you have your 9 to 5 or whatever your business hours are, and you're pretty much seeing clients back to back. A normal workday for me would be seeing 7 to 8 clients back to back. That's my 8-hour workday.
Wow.
And then by the end, you're depending on who you are, like your dream, from helping so many people back to back
Mhm.
to back. And you do that like 4 to 5 times a week. you
That's a
know
lot. That's draining mentally too.
yeah. And it's crazy because, when I talk to therapists that want to transition into the coaching world, for me, what coaching has offered me is that I have all my skill sets of being a therapist. I know I'm very clinically trained in trauma and, all the diagnoses and everything that you need to know. But now with coaching, I get to use all of that, expertise and acknowledgement and use it in a way that can really help someone who's in a mental state to move forward, really excel their way in a healing journey because they're in a good place to do so.
Right.
Right. And so there's all the duet in there. And coaching really focuses more on present and future, where therapy is past, present,
Mhm.
and future.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So what is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and how do you get a client to shift from
Yeah.
fixed to growth?
Love that. Love that. Okay, so a fixed mindset, I always say, is very much closed. There's not much room for growth. It's like black or white thinking, like it's one way, and that's all that I can fathom or think of. An example of this would be like, I could never be an entrepreneur. That's
Right.
not for me. I don't think that I could ever, see myself living in that way. I need a secure paycheck, every week or bi-weekly, whatever may have you, to live a stable lifestyle.
Mm.
There's no way that I could just be an entrepreneur. A growth mindset will take a challenge and look for opportunities to grow and to see how this is feasible. Anything in life truly is feasible. Where there's a will, there's a way. 100% believe that, like, with all my heart. So that is a growth mindset. Like, you're looking for opportunity and
Mhm.
solution. I also correlate, the term growth mindset to solution focused mindset, right? Where you know that there's an answer. It may take some time, but you're willing to try again and again and again until we get there. And so the second part to your question, how do I get the transition? Fixed mindsets usually are formulated by experiences that we've had. So take it off entrepreneurship. Let's just say we're dating and we're in relationships, and that's like the trouble that we're having, right? If you're someone who has tried time and time again to have a successful relationship, and maybe you've gotten cheated on many times, or just have had bad experiences, your fixed mindset is going to be something along the lines of like, I'm not good enough, or I only attract bad men, bad women, whatever may have you. Or I always use the one like men ain't beep. If you're someone that has like met men time and time again who aren't what you deem to be what you wanted, right? It's just like, this is just the way it is, and there's nothing different from that. And so I also teach my students and my clients a lot about law of attraction, the laws of the universe. And when you say things like that over and over again, you're literally attracting them to you. So if you keep saying something like, man, can I curse on this podcast?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I want to be like respectful, but if you're saying things like, this is the way that men are, blah blah, whatever. Let's say you're a heterosexual woman, understand that like the mind. If I say something like, um, I never have enough money at the end of my paycheck. Every paycheck that you get, you're going to find out that you never
Never have enough money.
right. And if you start thinking about your paycheck as like, I'm making smart choices, and I'm lowering my expenses so that my paycheck is able to cover all that I need and more. Little by little, you will start cutting things out that you don't need and allow that paycheck to pay for what is necessary. Right. It's just a matter of how we view things. So, the second part of your question, how do I get them to transition? Looking at their traumas. What experiences shifted your perspective of the world that allowed you to think this way? And that's really what it's about, learning more about yourself and what caused these shifts to happen for you.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that that sometimes people struggle with in terms of making a shift from fixed to growth is that for some people, growth is tangible. Like they can move along with whatever that process is. But for others, growth seems to be like this abstract concept, So how do you, I guess, how do you help people who may see growth as an abstract concept quantify what growth actually looks like?
Yeah. So can you give me a concrete example so I can give you a direct response?
Meaning that, you're working with a client and you've seen a client move along you throughout their journey and get to another place, but that client is still stuck because they don't see tangible growth. Like there are some people that for them in the world of solution focus, I don't have a job. Well, I applied for a job, that's tangible. That's
Yes.
something to quantify and measure. But for some
Yes.
people, it's like they only see the, and yeah, they can't, because they can't they can't touch it, they can't feel it,
Yeah.
they can't relate to the actual growth, the inner growth.
Yes, 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 yes. So my first notion would be to allow them to see their areas of growth on paper. So like, hey, when you first started working with me, you've made these steps. Let's use your example of like someone wanting to have, let's say, a higher salary or more income come their way, right? And so they've made efforts to apply to jobs and maybe do a side hustle, but no money has actually come in yet. So they're like, this isn't working, right? But in reality, it's like, look how many people you reached out to, telling them about your business. Look how many times you've applied for jobs, and look at all the experience that you're getting, so that when the right one comes along, you're so ready to have an amazing interview with your potential new employer, right? And so if even at that point, which happens all the time, if they're still not able to see like, yeah, but like, some people are, when we're heavy in our depression or just heavy in our trauma or just have like a negative mindset, it's just like, yeah, but this isn't working. Like, and we tend to give up. Right. And so at that point, you really, really have to dig deeper. And it's not about your goal that you think that you're trying to go for. Something deeper, just for example, might be like, it's never going to be enough.
Right.
Coming to that realization.
Coming into that realization of like, let's dig deeper here, right? Because what I find in traditional therapy is that we sometimes can spend a lot of time. Let's say they come in, I'm like, I have anxiety. It's like, okay, cool, let's talk about it. And so they're like, I'm anxious about being on time for things. I'm anxious about my son, being good in school. I'm anxious about, and so they have like all these like little fires of what they're anxious about. And in traditional therapy, which is nothing wrong with this, but some clinicians will go the route of like, let's heal all these mini fires. And for me in coaching, what I like to do is like skip all these fires, because they're going to keep popping up, because it's stemming from something much deeper than this, right? And so if we dig deeper, it's like, okay, what are you really worried about? Oh, you know what? I don't feel safe. Okay. If we could pull that trauma out, then you wouldn't be worried about your son. So, so for me, helping that person from the, growth fix of not seeing enough in what they're doing, it's like, well, this really isn't about your job. You don't find yourself worthy. Right? You're not able to see the growth that you're having. You're not able to give yourself a pat on the back. Like, what's up with that?
Right. The encouragement, the self-encouragement you should be giving to yourself. Listening to what you said and the question that Shanad asked about tangibility, but one of the intangible things I believe that stops most people is fear. How do you get people to deal with fear as a reality more than it just being a thought? Because some people don't really pay attention to fear until they're scared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But usually fear's around them all the time. Like you said, when it comes to taking a risk or stepping out of your comfort zone, people look at failure as the prerequisite of even attempting. I'm going to fail at that. Somebody ever going to try. So how do you get your classes or your clients to deal with their personal fears?
Yeah, this is a big one for all areas of life. But I also have a class of like young entrepreneurs who are trying to make it in the online world. And this is like the first lesson I teach them. Fear, you need to expect fear. If you don't expect fear, like you're not trying hard enough, to be quite honest. Right? Like if you're not in an area of
uncomfortable setting,
then you're not growing or expanding, right? And so anxiety and or fear, it's a contraction for an opportunity for expansion, right? Because when we're fearful, we tend to shrink, which is okay. We tend to want to hide, or we tend to want to like not show ourselves or not believe in ourselves and like just not even try, right? That's a contraction. You're going inward. And when you stay and you ride out that wave, there's so much room for grand expansion, right? So I always tell my entrepreneurs or anyone who's experiencing fear in their life, it's just like, hey, if you want to grow, when that fear comes, welcome it with open arms, because you're going to level the F up.
Right.
If you write it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I'm like, welcome the fear. If you're not in fear, something's up. We're not stretching ourselves.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Because, I try to tell the children this all the time. Face your fears, man. Go into it with just a crazy mindset, like, I got this. Even if you know you don't, at least trick yourself to believing that you have it. Because a lot of times it's what you think about that's giving you the precursor of what's about to happen. So if you're thinking failure is going to show up. And I tell this to my wife too. Anything you think about is going to come. So be careful what you're thinking about. We talk about the laws of attraction and principles.
Yep.
One of the great books that I like to read, I don't know if you're familiar with it, is Hermetic Science. And it talks about the 7 principles of Hermetic Science. And they're just natural laws, vibration, the polarity, the cause and effect. These are things we deal with every day, like gravity.
Yep.
We don't pay attention to them. You know what I mean? We don't pay attention to the words we use and expect that them words is going to follow us back. Let me ask you this, though, while I'm on it. I had my question. Sorry. Pardon me. Well,
affirmations. That's what you're talking about, Rob. Makes me think about affirmations. Like, I feel that there are a lot of people that have become comfortable with affirmations, you know, and realize the power of positive affirmations. But for some reason, I don't think that they grasp the power of negative self-talk and how negative self-talk, it just is what Rob was saying, how negative self-talk kind of helps lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, how do you get a client to kind of be able to make that connection that, you know, yes, positive affirmations are very important, but if you engage in negative self-talk, then
you'll get the same result,
diminishing all of the great positive affirmations you put into the universe.
Yeah. I always tell my clients, there was like a study done in 2004, so very, very long time ago. And it was stating how we have a minimum of 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. And
stop and think about that for a second.
That's a lot of thoughts.
Not 10, not 30, not 100.
Not even 500, like 60,000. I mean, it's quite insane. And so when you think, you know, and I always bring up that the study was done in 2004, because if you think about it, if they were to read you the study, I'm sure we're at a much higher number these days.
Absolutely. Which is decreasing our attention span and how we pay attention to stuff. So now we got the ADD and the ADHD, when we really need to just know how to quiet our minds, how to slow things down, and not be on this proverbial hamster on the wheel race, going in the same place at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, we're definitely past 60,000 thoughts a day. He said, I know I surpassed. Yeah. Sure. I mean, I do too. Like literally, we all do, right? And so, Shannon, remind me, what was your question?
Oh, just in terms
of affirmations.
Yeah.
Yes, the affirmations. So, you know, I always tell my clients, my students, like, you know, if you're giving energy to maybe 5 affirmations a day, it's like cool, A for effort, but like compared to the 60K thoughts that we have, it's like you're gonna have to do a lot more than that.
Absolutely.
Right? You're gonna have to do a lot more than that, to be quite honest. And I love affirmations. Affirmations most definitely work, but they take time and dedication, right? Like for you to truly ingrain those thoughts or those beliefs into your mind. And so a trick that I usually tell my clients is that if you say something like, you know, I am strong, I am beautiful, I am resilient, you know, and they kind of roll off your tongue, it's usually a sign that like you're good in that area. If it rolls off your tongue, you pretty much believe it. If you say something that is not so easy to say out loud, it's like, that's what you have to work on. For example, right, one that people usually trip up on is like, I'm going to be a millionaire next year. If you can't fathom that or believe that,
right,
you're going to have hesitation saying that, right? And so I just use a money one because that's usually one that gets people's attention, but it could be with anything. If you struggle with saying, I am beautiful, if you struggle with saying, you know, I am a great worker or a great husband, a great wife, whatever it may have you, a great mother, a great father, if it's hesitant, it's like, that's the one that you have to work on.
Yeah. In terms of trauma though, how do you think trauma contributes to a fixed mindset?
Yeah, 100 so much. It's so I always make it clear, like trauma doesn't mean that you're like that you have PTSD, which is like what people usually go to. Like trauma, there's little trauma and big trauma, right? Like you can have instances in your life that have simply caused a ripple effect in the way that you perceive the world, right? And so that could be a little trauma, right? And so it doesn't have to be this exasperating event that like changed everything. It could be little things that happened usually in your childhood, right? And so trauma, slash life experiences, they most definitely shape the way that you perceive the world. And everybody's different. So if you grew up in a house and you have siblings, and the way that your parent relationship affected you may be completely different for your brother or sister, right? And so what healing, what coaching or therapy really is taking the time to just sit with what's happened and figure out who you are and what are your beliefs about self and the world around you.
Right.
Right.
I was going to ask that. The perception of the world and how that fashions your mindset. It's just like the old saying, you're a product of the environment you're in. You could be the coolest kid, the best respectful kid, but if you live in a hostile environment, some point that hostility is gonna come out of your little cool behind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're gonna react that way because it's been around you. And in my case, personally, I remember as a kid, my mother always shut me down. And I said to myself, I made an affirmation to myself. I said, when I'm 19, ain't nobody gonna tell me what to say. And from that day on, I've been running my mouth till I had to learn, all right, bro, take it down. Read your point.
Yeah.
But your environment and your perception of the world has a very big catalyst to your mindset. Talk about that a little bit.
So I'm going to use your example. Thank you for sharing that. So let's just say, like, your mom would always, like, turn you down or whatever may have you. And so you had it in your mind that, like, once I'm 19, like, no one's going to tell me anything, right? Like, I'm going to be able to, like, say what's on my mind or whatever was crossing your mind. And so that is an example of, like, cause and effect. Right. For somebody else, it could have made them, like, mute, for lack of better words. Like, it could have made them like lose their identity or lose their voice. And for you, it was like a thing of like, no, I'm going to fight back, once I'm 19. Right. Or I'm going to vocalize my needs, or no one's going to get in my way once I'm 19. And so that was, I would, deem positive. But at the same time, perhaps, just taking a stab at it here, perhaps while you were in your, like, adolescence and growing up, becoming a man, maybe that made you very defensive. If anyone tried to shut you down, because you, like, in your mind,
I got something to say. You're not going to tell me I can't say something.
Correct. So that's a perfect example of, like, how your past determines how you view yourself and the world around you. Yeah,
that's right.
Talk a little bit about the importance of mindfulness and being present.
Yeah. So important. And I think that, like, people really don't understand the grand importance of being present, right? Or even understand, like, how do you do that? Like, for, like, talking to my mom, like, she, we'll try and, like, we'll do, like, a meditation. I'm trying to get her in the wave of, like, this, like, healing and all the things and just being still. And it's so hard for me too. My beginning journey was the same thing. It's so hard for someone who's used to going to sit still.
Right.
And yeah, it's really hard. And the reason so is it's just become comfortability because it's your familiarity, right? If all I'm used to is moving all the time, sitting still is like the complete opposite. And our ego is like, what is going on? Why are you doing this? Like, why are we slowing down? And so even though it's not a negative thing, the brain doesn't know whether it's good or bad. It just knows that it's different. And different is scary. Right. And we loop that back into fear, what we just spoken about. We want to do different things to be successful. That's why we say, like, expect the fear because you're doing something right. Right. And so because we're so used to the norm or familiarity, like, anything new is very scary for us. So standing still for a lot of us, myself including in the beginning of my healing journey, was like, I cannot do this. I can't meditate. I can't close my eyes for 5 minutes and do nothing. Like, I'm thinking about tasks, what I have to do, about anything but being still. Right. And that alone is enough. That alone is just the awareness of, like, I'm having a really hard time sitting still. Self-awareness, right? That alone can tell you, like, what the hell do I think about in a matter of 5 minutes? Look how many thoughts I'm having. Look how hard it is to be present and focus on my breath once again, or whatever form of meditation you do, because it's not the stereotypical, like, yogi stance of, like, just being still. Right? You could do it while cooking. You could take a walk in nature. It's just an act of being present, right? And so what I always explain to my clients is that, To make it simple, anxious thoughts are usually thoughts about the future, and depressive thoughts are usually thoughts about the past, right? Anxious thoughts are very much like, I got to do this, or what if this happens? What if that happens? It's all future based. And sad, depressive thoughts are like, oh, this thing happened in the past, and like it's tugging you along, and we can't let go of it, right? And so, what being mindful, being present does is it allows you to kind of like refuel your energy as if you like we have a cup, right? And being present allows you to fuel up, because the reality is that we're going to think about the past and we're going to think about the future. It's just normal. But the more time that we spend being mindful, aka being present, you'll have the proper energy to go into the future more grounded and more rational, and to go into your past more rounded and more rational. So then we can heal and look at things from a really healthy perspective than just flipping over to either side and getting lost in the sauce of like our life.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sharing, we had a guest on probably a couple of episodes ago, and I was sharing with him one of the things that I strategically try to do when I go on vacations now is, not to spend as much time on social media. Everybody want to get that perfect picture and everything. I take some pictures, but not nearly as much as what I used to do. And I think what I realized in doing that is like I really wasn't experiencing the totality of the vacation, because my mind was on like other things, like I could get a photo here and this, that, and all these wonderful things, these opportunities to see these things that some people would probably never have an opportunity to see. Yeah, I saw it, but did I really have an opportunity to experience it? Because I wasn't present. My mom was like, I got to get this picture. I got to do this to do that. So I don't know if it's come with age, with like getting a little bit older, that now I kind of like, I appreciate, like, I don't have nothing to do this weekend. I don't have nothing to do today. Let me just not do anything. But admittedly, I think not doing anything is difficult for me, because a lot of people tie their self-worth to being able to do stuff. And I think also a part of actually thriving as a human being is doing stuff. There are studies that say that when people retire, that you still have to find a way to stay active, because so much of our self-worth and who we are connected to our activity and our output and what we do. So I think that for everybody, like, it's always going to be like a work in progress around stillness. But I think, like you said, like if there's some level of consciousness around it and you have the ability to slow down a little bit and actually appreciate it, then you've made an improvement. Not everybody, I think a lot of people are future oriented, right? That they're always thinking about what potentially is going to happen in the future. I have the potential for this to happen, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. Their mind is always so far ahead, in the future, that they don't actually appreciate the right now. Like, there's beauty in what's happening right now, but you can't see what's happening right now because all you're thinking about is what potentially could happen. And it's, I think it's a rough shift for people. Garrock.
If I could add on to that, man, and I like to think, when it comes to a good mindset, I think our greatest powers are our memory and our imagination. Because those two things, although internal, and that's why, one of our guests, we spoke about our last guest, Dr. Ashley Wade, reading with Ashley Wade, I asked about introspection and going inside and really being accountable for how you feel and the things that have happened. And I look at that as you can go into your memory, like your memory, when we talk about past and future, they're all right here. Simultaneously in your future, you have that range of thought to be in your past and see it. You can see yourself on that bike when you was a kid and fell off. The same way you can see yourself 2 or 3 years from now. You can see that third baby coming when you're ready. Right now.
Hey, putting that in the universe.
My husband hear that.
These are two great internal powers in the practice of introspection that, for me, I use to as a guiding post. And my question to you is, knowing your history is a great guidepost for many people, knowing who you are, where you come from. But in many cases, that's not the case. A lot of people don't know their history. How much is that a big part in people's development, knowing who they are and where they come from?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge. You know, remind me to come back because what you said was so profound about the vision, about seeing your past and future. But let me answer your question first. I think it's huge to be able to. I don't like getting lost in the sauce, right? Like I don't. If we got to revisit the past to understand ourselves, but I don't like getting lost in the past to where it becomes
Right,
traumatic. That's like all we
right, right.
think, right? So I really enjoy helping clients dip into the past and like literally if you could like visualize me like yanking them as soon as they get lost in the sauce. It's like
Wow.
we're just going there just to learn, but I'm not there to reiterate what happened and we spend hours talking about like I just want you
Right,
to
right, right, right.
understand and then I'm gonna pull you right back out. Like,
Right.
we can take that information and propel you forward,
That's right. That's right.
right? And
That's the
so
goal.
yeah, that's the goal, right? And
The
so
goal.
when you said, you know, that we have the ability in this present moment to think about the past, like the bike, when we fell off the bike, and then also think about the future, it's like, yeah, that's exactly how profound our, you know, if we're talking about like spirituality, people call this like the third eye, like our ability to visualize past and future and how exciting that can actually be when you think about it in the terms of like, look how clearly you can remember that past. That's the
Right.
how clearly you can project your future,
Right.
right? And you know, if we want to get like, you know, I love like nerdy science talk, right? Like, you know, time is not linear, right? And so if
Talk
we
about
if
it. Talk about it. Jalisa, talk
right?
about
So if we can remember that, let's say we can call it a dimension of when we fall off the bike, and we can envision, you know, something happening in the future. I read this book, I don't want to butch his name. He's an Indian author. I don't want to mess it up. So let me see if I can find it later if it comes back into my Rupak. But if I can remember it, I will give you the proper name. But anywho, he also talks about the 7 laws, and he talks about how if you can envision it, it's already created.
Right.
Right. And I'm thinking about your podcast is called No Ideas Original. Is that what you guys mean by that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly
man.
what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yes. I figured, and I was like, this is like right up my alley. So yeah, so I believe that wholeheartedly, right? Like art, right? Like we see art, whether it's book or a painting or a podcast, like people expressing their mind, and like you hear something and then it triggers so many things within you, right? So all of my thoughts have been experiences, books that I've read, studies that I've had in classrooms, right? Like no idea is my own. Right. And so, you know, when we can think about the future, this author, you know, he states that like literally if you can think it, it can happen, right? Like the first person that thought about an airplane, the first person, like, it was like that wasn't a thing, but if you thought it already exists because time is not linear. And so if you're able to have the thought, universe, God, source, whatever you believe in, literally gave you the thought because it's already
Exactly. Exactly. You know what's interesting to me? You know, I think about when you finish clinical school, you know,
happening.
and you get into the field. I'm
Mhm.
thinking about like even the evidence-based model that you and I were
Yep.
working with. You know, I think one of the things that was challenging for a lot of people when you come out of clinical school is that, you know, you want to do was viewed as therapy, you know. So when you start thinking about therapy, you get so roped into, you know, almost like what you said, like, all right, I need this historical context that I have to dig into, you know, because
Mhm.
there's all this trauma. And you know, I have to do this genogram, and you know, we have to examine this and we have to examine that. And there's just so much going on that in that moment, I don't know if as a new therapist, or even with us doing that program, that if we appreciated the value of second order change. And what I mean by second order change in the world of therapy or in the world of coaching
Mhm.
is, you know, there are interventions that you can do that don't necessarily have to do with historical stuff, that can actually change the
Yeah.
behavior patterns of people that'll give them the same exact result.
Right.
But you know, I think we get so stuck as clinicians into, we have to, I don't even know if this is a word, but we say it a lot in this world, therapeutize
Yeah, yeah.
somebody to
Yeah.
get to look this
I get it. I get it though.
to get results. So I wonder, you know, because it took me years as a clinician to kind of get to this point that, you know, Do you believe that in order for a person to actually experience change, that they have to have insight? And if so, why?
Okay, so in order for someone to have change, they have to have insight.
Do they have to have insight? And if so, why? Because I think about solution focused models, right?
Mhm.
And some solution focused models, there's not a historical context around it. It's like almost like what we used as an example earlier when we were talking about a job. Like, all right, so you're in therapy because you need to get a job. I haven't been able to get a job. Okay, so a solution focused therapist intervention may be, at the end of this week, I need you to apply for 4 jobs or
Yes.
whatever. There
Yeah.
is no part of you need to have insight as to what happened in the past that led you to not be able to have a job
Mm.
or want a job.
Mhm.
But the actual client is going to get the same result at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Unless the client came to you and was like, well, I need insight as to why I can never hold the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
what I'm circling around to is like, as a therapist, like how
Yeah.
have you grown to a point, or have you grown to a point where insight is not necessarily needed for every intervention?
Okay, so this is like a huge topic within itself. So this is the reason I love this conversation. This is the reason why I actually went to coaching personally, right? Because I do believe that in the clinical world, and I love therapy. Like it's necessary. It's such a great value for individuals that can seek greatness from therapy, right? Sometimes what I see that clinicians get stuck in is the theoretical practices, is like the follow the 1, 2, 3s, and you can't do anything else, right? And so, do we need insight? Yes, I personally think it would be more beneficial for someone to learn why they haven't been able to keep a job than to be, let's just call, because that could be called coaching of just like, I'm going to keep tabs on you. Just make sure that you apply to 5 jobs a week. That's standard coaching, right? What I love about therapeutic coaching, someone like myself who has a background in clinical therapy and coaching to hold someone accountable, right? Plus, other theoretic practices, I can dive into their past to understand why they are the way they are, why they haven't been able to keep a job, why they haven't been able to get a job, their levels of self-esteem, whatever may have you, and also apply to 10 jobs by the end of this week. Right. And them knowing themselves better, having that insight, maybe they were applying to the wrong jobs their whole life because they don't know who they are. They don't know what they want. Right. So maybe, if we want to mix spirituality into this, which is what I do all the time, maybe the universe is trying to tell you, like, this isn't for you. This is why you're not getting a job, because this isn't the type of job that you're supposed to be having.
Yeah. Do you believe that lack of insight comes from not knowing or not acknowledging? Right. Because we've encountered clients that have both. There are some people who it's just a blind spot for them. They just don't know. And then there are other people who, for whatever reason, are unwilling to acknowledge it because acknowledging it means something else.
They're denial, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the person, but it could be both. It could definitely be both. You could you could have all the insight and be so hurt that you still can't move forward.
Great point. Yeah.
That's
right.
tough.
And then you could have the experience of not even ever looking at your past wounds. So like you have no insight whatsoever, no acknowledgement. And that's
one of the things I say, there's people out here that don't know that they don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So yeah, that is trauma.
How do you reach that person? They don't even have a clue that there's something that they need to know.
Yeah.
They don't even have a clue about it. You know what I mean? And where do you start with that? That's a challenge.
Yeah. So I think our job as healers, therapists, coaches, is to just listen and find the commonality in all of their little fires, right? They'll tell you like this happened, this happened, this happened. And it's my job to be like, yeah, but this was happening every single time. You're respectfully. So I always say respectfully. So like you're the common denominator. And so like my job is to find out what energy you're repelling, what thoughts you're repelling that are causing these things to happen to you in all these little fires that are happening in your life.
That's right.
You know what I like about that? I kind of almost feel like, and I don't have training in coaching, but I almost feel like the different paradigm with coaching is that most of the time people are seeking you out and they're coming to you for coaching. So sometimes that demonstrates a level of openness to whatever the intervention is and the ability to challenge a client.
Yes.
A lot easier. That's got to be a beautiful thing for people to come in and be like, you know what, I want to advance. I want to move forward, versus somebody who comes in you
Yep.
challenge whatever their belief is, and they're like, nah, that's not the case. Not to say, because I'm sure you encountered in coaching that there are people
Yeah.
who still, when you challenge them, they
Yeah.
like, nah.
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head, 100%. Coaching is, for me, a beautiful platform because individuals are definitely they're readily available to look inward.
Mm,
I do a lot of psycho ed. Like, I also love coaching for the aspect of, like, let's say my Instagram page. If you check out my page, like, there's a lot of psycho ed on there. And so I'm first of all, I'm giving you a piece of my life. You see my children on there, my pets on there. You see who I am as a person first,
mhm,
Right.
a wife, a daughter, whatever may have you. And then, and I'm also a professional, right?
mhm,
And so usually with therapy, that's not really allowed. You're not really allowed to know about the therapist. It's supposed to be a blank slate. And for me personally, it started to feel very ingenuine. Right. It's just like, I'm just supposed to repeat back what you're saying back to me. And you're giving someone your deepest, darkest secrets, your traumas, and you can't know anything about me. Like, you don't know my political views, so it's just
mhm,
like, it's not about me. I'll make that very clear. It's not about me. But should you go on my Instagram page and you check out, my energy, and you're like, I really like this girl. Like, I would love for her to hold me accountable. I would love to look inward and work on my traumas with her.
mhm.
That alone sets up the success for healing so much greater than someone coming into a clinical practice, getting a therapist assigned to them out of random or out of availability, and
Mhm.
saying, like, hope this works out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great, because there are a lot of people who go into therapy and don't even interview their therapist.
Yeah. They don't even know that's a thing.
Yeah. They don't even, I mean, they won't even ask their therapist, what model you trained in, or
Right. What school
people
you
do no
graduated
research. They just come in and they like, oh, okay, you the therapist. Let me just talk to you.
from?
Yeah.
Or the other thing is that people look for commonalities, thinking
Yes.
that that's going to help in terms of engagement. Oh, you're an African-American man. I'm African-American. This should work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
You have, yeah,
Yeah.
Shah.
No, go, bro.
You have a number of programs I've seen on your Instagram.
Mhm.
One, how'd you come up with the concept of conscious motherhood?
That's it's like my baby right now. Yeah.
I can imagine. I want to hear about that because I say this before on the show. When you teach a man, you teach an individual. When you teach a woman, or you show a woman the way, you're teaching a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Because life comes through. There's only one way life gets here, and that's through a woman. So you want to be sure, or be mindful that anything that you share with them, especially in that stage, she's
Yeah.
going to internally share that with the child. And secondly, talk about the progress of those who have taken your course, and what does that progress look like?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I mean, I love all my programs, I really do, but this one has, like, I'm just like I'm so well immersed right now in motherhood. It's like all that's on my brain right now.
Fresh right now.
It's fresh. It's real fresh. 6 weeks postpartum, like, it is fresh. So, to talk a little bit, so the program itself, my motto or slogan for that program is that when a mother heals, her entire family heals.
That's a fact.
Right?
That's a fact.
Because we all have trauma, right? And so, and if a mother is blinded to her trauma, is unaware of her trauma, it's so much more likely for her to pass down that trauma unknowingly. Right. And so for me, it's so vital for the mom or mom to be, I accept women who are looking to conceive, who are pregnant, or who already have little ones. Right. And so, because even in those beginning stages, if you're looking for a partner or if you have a partner, like, all of that is so necessary to figure out. If feasible, before we conceive, or if you've already conceived or already have a baby, like, it's all important for you to know yourself. For this whole podcast of what we've been talking about thus far, it implies for everyone, but from my opinion, for mothers especially,
Right.
Because we're completely influencing these little ones' lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fathers too. Don't get me wrong. Fathers play a vital role. But understand that the woman chooses their partner. A man can choose his wife and his, but we are the ones who conceive. We are the ones who carry. We are the ones who are passing all this information onto baby, right? And we chose our partners or whatever may have you, right? So on a spiritual sense too, like, there's so much spirituality in holding and conceiving a baby, right? Like, when you think about it, we are portals. Women are portals. We take life from when it's just a soul and we give it a body. That's so powerful. And
Very
like,
powerful, right? That's what
you
I'm
know,
saying.
and no disrespect to men, but you guys can't do that.
None taken.
Yeah.
Trust me. The process of birth is equivalent to 40 cracked fractured bones. I don't want none of that.
Yeah.
God bless y'all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and we actually, so I have two babies. My firstborn son was born in the hospital, but we had my baby girl Maya in the home, like right here, like in this house.
we had a doula and all that too.
Yeah, we had a doula and a midwife. It was so beautiful.
Nice.
And she was 12 pounds, 2 ounces, vaginal birth.
Okay, she ready to go to work.
She was more a toddler, like literally half the weight of my toddler. And so yeah, like everyone's like, holy crap, like how did you do that? And I was like, literally, like one, it was a lot of mindset work, to be fully quite honest. And it was a lot of spiritual work, which is all that comes in the program that I teach. And so your second question was, what do the transformations look like? It depends on the mom and what she wants to work on during that time. But some of the main points in that program is to most definitely heighten your intuition, heighten your level of consciousness, right? To know self, to know traumas, to not repeat those things, and to have great communication skills for not only your partner when raising children, your family when raising children. Like we get so many issues of like having a lot of unpopular opinions or people trying to like put their 2 cents on how to raise your children, like the effective communications of like communication, boundaries, all that is so necessary for the regular human being and especially for a mother, right? And so all of that is, taught in the program with spirituality and consciousness. And some of the before and afters is, depending on where you are on your healing journey, I've had moms who were looking to conceive and their nervousness was causing so much fear that it was not allowing them to conceive.
Right.
Energetically, right? Or mamas who were pregnant and had so much nervousness about like the birth and like, am I going to be a good mom? Am I going to pass my traumas down? And having her get to a place of grounded security within herself, right? Which makes a massive difference to when you birth the baby and when you raise the baby. Like a mother who is sure of herself versus a mother who is like panic mode all the time, doubting herself. That's a very, very big difference.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's been patented or if it exists. You need the patent motherhood informed care.
Yeah.
And if you need to formalize your model also. So one day you could be at the Ackerman Institute giving an overview on your model on motherhood informed care.
Yeah, like full circle, right? So crazy. Yeah, I definitely got to get on that. Yeah.
Can you tell people what an anxiety loop is and how one goes about breaking the cycle of an anxiety loop?
Yeah. So anxiety loop is, so most individuals work on a think, feel, do basis. So we have a thought, then we have a feeling about that thought, and then we have a behavioral action or response depending on that feeling, right? So for example, it could be, I'm trying to think. Give me a nervous thought.
You worried about a bill you got to pay.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, yeah, like my thought might be, like, crap, I can't pay, this month's heating bill, right? And so then the feeling might be, think, feel, do. Yeah, the feeling might be nervousness, might be self-doubt, worry, whatever may have you, strain, stressed, right? And then my behavioral response could be so many things, and that's depending on the person, right? So my behavioral response could be, we're going to cut back on expenses, leisure expenses, because we need money for next month, right? Or I'm actually going to become highly irritable and highly sensitive to anything. So I'm going to be very short and short-tempered around my loved ones because of this feeling that I have about the bill, right? Or, I am an avoider. So I'm actually going to avoid this concept and I'm going to spend my money frivolously, right? Like the behavioral response could go so many different ways because everybody's so different in how they handle things. But the anxiety loop, so that was just the think, feel, do. That's how usually we process like emotions and thoughts. And so the anxiety loop is that we have this anxious thought. We have a moment of like contemplation of like, what are we going to do about it? Most of us avoid because it's safe, right? Most of us is like, I don't want to deal with this thing, right? And so, well, when we're anxious, we avoid. And so it gives us a temporary relief. But what ends up happening in the fourth step is that the anxiety, whatever you were avoiding, comes back twofold. Right. And so we just go in the circle over and over again. A simple example is like a kid who doesn't want to go to school, right? Playing like, calling out of school, calling in sick. And so it's like, oh my God, I didn't do my homework. I'm going to call out. Cool, fine. You feel better. You have the whole day to chill and rest. And then when it comes time for it to go to school tomorrow, you're even more anxious and more stressed because you still don't have that thing done. Right.
And the interesting thing about this is that most people's coping skill around anxiety is probably avoidance.
Everyone is. Nobody want to deal with nothing. People are so avoid. I don't want to deal with it. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah. But anxiety is normal for everybody to feel, and I think that some people just figured out ways to sort of manage their anxiety. There are different levels of anxiety, of course, but I believe everybody has some sort of general anxiety, that in terms of things that they deal with. Like for me, one of the things is like I'm a pre-planner around stuff, like, so I'm always thinking, okay, if there's traffic, I know I want to get there on time. Maybe I should leave a little bit earlier, or this potentially could happen. So, I need to do this, or I need to do that. And that helps reduce my anxiety. But I only learned that later on in life, like, this is a way for me to reduce my anxiety. There are some people who I think still haven't gotten to that point in terms of how they manage their anxiety, and then it consumes them. And I think that if you become overly consumed with anxiety, it could be paralyzing.
Absolutely. Like, DSM, like straight out of like the clinical book for like diagnoses, it's usually everyone has symptoms of everything. We have symptoms of like depression, anxiety. It's just a matter of like, how many symptoms do you have, and does it interfere with your everyday life, right? And so, with your example of like, thinking ahead about traffic and stuff, I always say, like, to take it back to mindfulness too, and filling your energy up. If you spend enough time being mindful and being present, you can most definitely think ahead. And think ahead. So the difference between someone thinking ahead and having a successful, let's say, future, of being able to plan things out and it helping them, versus planning ahead and being frantic about it, right? If I can plan ahead and be like, all right, let's say vision board, that's a big thing, right? Like 2023, I want to have a house, like whatever may have you, right? And you're listing out objectives and pinpoints of like, how am I going to actually get there? That's beautiful. Plan ahead. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Versus I'm looking into the future. And it's like, oh my God, like, how am I going to handle school and work? And so then you start to think about like whatever this future thing is in a negative perspective, in a very worrisome perspective. And it's like your central nervous system is not calm at all, which is not allowing us to make rational decisions about how we can actually get from point A to point B. Versus like you, Shannon, like if you're thinking about how can I decrease my worry and stress by planning ahead for this traffic, that's great.
Yeah. I noticed on your Instagram, you just said something that made me think about this. You were talking about, I guess, like the anxiety that you had as a result of, I guess, like motherhood and becoming an entrepreneur. And you were using like almost like a concept around like the possibility of how you can have both. Whereas some people kind of get roped into it's either or.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So this is again, like your potential to do anything is really based upon your mindset. 100%. Like, and I had to do so much work on that. There's still hurdles that I continuously have to get over on that concept alone, right? Like people will give you so many excuses of like, yeah, she could do it, but I can't. He could do it, but I can't. I have different circumstances, whatever may have you. And it's like, it's that mindset that's going to keep you in that predicament, right? And so a personal experience of mine was like, can I really be a full-time mom and still run a 6-figure business? Like, is that feasible? And the answer is yes, right? Like the difference between my firstborn son and my daughter now, I learn and we grow as we continue on with life. Is that with my son, I most definitely had a 3-month period of standstill in the business. which was fine. I saved up for maternity, all the things. And my mindset at that point was, okay, I'm gonna have to take care of my son. So this has to be on pause while I do this, so then I'll come back. Right. And with Maya, with this pregnancy, the mindset was, no, I can run a business and be a full-time mom. Where there's a will, there's a way. Right. And so that concept right there was just like, well, how am I going to do that? Like, how am I going to continue to pay everybody in my business? How am I going to continue, while I'm not necessarily working? And there was ins and outs of that, of how we made that work, but we made it work. Right. And it was simply because of that shift that my business coach really helped me with, that shift in mindset of like, you can do both. There's no either or in anything in life. It can be this and that. Right. As long as you have the capacity to be open to all possibilities.
Yeah, I looked at your mindset, your mind reset bundle. Talk about that. Plug yourself a little bit on that.
Okay, so I'll give an overview. So I have 3 main programs, right? So I say that I'm a mindset queen for all things mental health, entrepreneurship, and motherhood. Those are my 3 areas of expertise. And so mental health, because my background is being a licensed psychotherapist. That's what I used to do from 9 to 5 for so many years. Entrepreneurship, because I can really help. That's my entrepreneur's mind reset, right? That's my business or my program for beginner entrepreneurs who really want to just get started in the online space and they don't know where to start. They don't know how to monetize their Instagram. Like, I give you a beginner's course and I help you have a success first program, first program, right? And so then my mind reset program was actually my original baby. It's what started this business completely. And it was really just the idea and notion that, like, people really have to understand science and psychotherapy and psychology first, or they can be more successful when they get the science behind things and then apply it to self. And the reason why I thought and believed that was because it worked with me. When I was in graduate school, when I was learning about all these different theories and concepts, you most definitely apply it to yourself. You're like, oh, that's why my family's this way. Like, oh my God, like that, and you start to like apply these things to yourself. And I was like, if everyone had that opportunity, you could heal much faster. Because you're taking just black and white concepts of what it is, and you get to apply it to yourself without someone telling you, like, did you know that you're this way, which can cause you to be defensive. Right. And so the idea of teaching somebody with the mind reset program is very much psychoeducational, teaching someone what it is that we're experiencing, what's trauma, what's anxiety, what's depression, all those things, what's a father wound, what's a mother wound, all of those things. Right. And then the second half of the program is taking all that information and really sitting with you, the person, and exploring like how those things have come up in your life and what have you been blinded to, and how can we surpass those things and become more resilient.
Can you speak a little bit about psychoeducation? Like, give people almost like not a formal, but an overview of what psychoeducation is, because I think psychoeducation to me is one of the most underrated interventions in counseling that people don't give enough credit to, probably because it's not as attractive as some of the other interventions. But psychoeducation is pivotal. So can you speak a little bit about psychoeducation?
Yeah, so important. So like, to put it, when I was working my 9 to 5, I found myself having to tell people that were in certain stages of healing the same thing, I was like a broken record. And it was like, if people had the psychoeducation, which is simply education about psychology, like literally, right? If people had this prior to coming to see me, if they watched a video of like what anxiety is, if they could make their own assumption, and then me as a clinical expert could guide them as to how this is interfering in their lives or being impacted in their lives. Because what I find myself doing a lot in the traditional therapy was like, hey, someone's coming in for anxiety, and I had to teach them what's anxiety. I had to teach them, like what's black and white thinking, which is a concept of anxiety, right? I had to teach them all these things. And I was like, if I could just have a prerequisite class before you come see me, the healing could happen so much faster, right? And so that's what psychoeducation is. Like, it's just learning these concepts about psychology and the mind and the psyche and the ego, all those things, right? And so yeah, again, like that's literally what mind reset is. It's the education, and then we heal.
Yeah. One of the things that I really appreciate also about treatment, like in the year I've been involved with it, the evolution of it, right? Like, you think about like for some people still believe treatment means that you go in and you lay on a couch and you talk to a therapist. There's some people who don't know the difference between a clinician, a psychologist, and a psychiatrist.
Oh yeah.
Still, there are a lot of people who just don't know.
They think they're all the same.
The difference, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the evolution of treatment, like, there was a time where there was no digital sessions going on, and this was even pre-pandemic. I think we were already moving in the direction of telehealth services and things like that. Like, even if you think back to when we were doing evidence-based programming, there was that component that people was like, wait a minute, I'm doing family therapy virtually over a Zoom type platform, and couldn't grasp how that still could be a powerful intervention to hold a family session in an online platform. So sometimes I think about, like, where's treatment going to be 20 years from now? Like, what are these interventions is there going to be car therapy where you in a car with your therapist? And like, if you probably even think back like 20 years ago, it wasn't acceptable to actually go into a client's home and provide therapy in a client's home. Now it's commonly used to go into somebody's home and actually provide the intervention in their home. So, in terms of that, like, where do you see treatment going from your perspective?
So we've already shifted. So again, I mix a lot of spirituality in my practice now. And so there are already healers that exist right now in this day and age that do so many virtual healing sessions without even talking to the person.
Look at that.
Just based on energy, right? There's I've worked with like Reiki healers, which is someone who works with like the chakras. I've worked with shamans, like all these spiritual based healers that they can literally you can tell them. I've had experiences where you can tell them what's happening in your life, and they go off on a meditation and they do their thing and they work on healing your aura, your energetic vibes, and you're not doing a damn thing.
It's visualization. They take in what they see in you, having the greatest idea of your outcome.
I wonder if the evolution of treatment has progressed as a result of getting more people to buy into treatment, because the stigma that was once associated with treatment now sort of subsiding a little bit. Before it was like, you go see a therapist, you crazy, which to me is extremely dismissive of a person.
Totally dismissive.
But I it seems like it's more commonplace and people have gotten more open to having this discussion. And I don't know if there's a correlation between the fact that therapy is no longer traditional therapy, and there are these different models and different practices that people use now that get the same results.
Yeah. I could say so much on this topic. I think that this is a personal opinion of mine. I think that, I went the traditional route. I went to school, I got my master's, I learned all the theories, all the things. And no idea is your own. Let's just go back to that, right? And so I think that a lot of times we get lost in the sauce of like, this is a professional, they went to school for this and that, so they know better, or they can assess me, or they can help heal me better. And I'm not taking away from individuals like myself who got their degrees and worked really hard to do those things and got all the clinical hours. Not taking away from that at all. But if we're going to this concept that no idea is our own, understand that our spirit, when I say spirituality, I mean connection to self. I don't mean religion. I just mean how well do you know yourself, and how well knowing yourself can you tap into source, whatever that means to you, whether it's God, universe, whatever may have you, right? And so that's not religion. Religion is structured, right? This is just like your inner belief, your inner connection to self and to source, to light, right? And so for me, the only reason why textbooks, the reason why psychology exists is because someone else before us tapped into source and wrote it down on paper. Right. And if this information of source is available to all of us, because it is, do you really, this could shake a lot of people's like, do you really need an education to be what you're supposed to be in life? Listen, again, I do not take away from the degrees that I myself have acquired. Those are definitely things that have taught me and molded me to be the amazing person that I am today. Right. But I've also learned the more scholarly information that I was seeking, the more that I found out that I already knew all these things internally without needing to look at it in a textbook.
I want to say something real quickly.
You touched something in Rob.
Because we use the word education, and we think education is getting some information from the outside.
From an institution.
But the word educate, education comes from the word educate, which comes from the Greek word, you heard me say this before, Shot, educare. It means to draw out, not to take in. It's pretty much the process of reminding you what you've already known.
Yes.
So that you can recognize that with, oh shit, I know that.
Yeah.
And bringing it out and kind of just having you be like, wow, thank you. I think, you know what, sometimes that's all you need is someone to say something to spark that thought that has you, whether it's how deep it is, it'll find its place and then bring it out. So when I hear people say educate, taking nothing away from all you degree people.
Correct.
Because that took work, time, money, all sorts of things that go into grabbing education. But education also comes from within as well.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
There's to me, I guess like the school aspect is for theory, right? Like there are a lot of things that I learned in a textbook, but the actual practice is what makes you, who you actually are. Like there are some people that are wonderful, that they know the theories, but when it comes to actually connecting and engaging with a client, they just don't have the ability to do it. Right. And it's almost like it almost creates sometimes a hierarchy, I think, also for a lot of clients. That's why for years you think about it, like in particular for people of color, most of our counseling which wasn't probably viewed on a level of professional counseling, was through like from our pastors, from our clergy, whoever it was, they gave whether it was bereavement counseling, marital counseling, whatever it was, they counseled around all of that stuff. And it wasn't from a theoretical framework. It was from, this is a person that I trust and a person that I can connect with. And, for me, even going to school, I don't remember, maybe for you going to school, you may remember, but I don't remember much in terms of much emphasis placed on joining. Like joining was important and we spoke about it in terms of theory, but it wasn't really like a whole bunch around how do you actually engage somebody as a human, and I didn't go to social work school because I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. But the social worker thing was always, you meet a person where they are. And to me, that was kind of like the extent of the joining intervention. You meet a person where they are. Right. But let's look behind that. So how do you meet a person where they are if that person is somebody who has substance abuse issues? You don't have substance abuse issues. It sounds good to say, I'm gonna meet you where you are.
Yeah.
But do you really relate? Like, are you empathic to that? Like, do you really, and I think that's where I think the schooling piece kind of gets lost. And there are a lot of people who hang their hat on credentials. Like I've seen videos of a lot of really good therapists that, the stuff that they do, I'm like, wait a minute, that ain't in the textbook, but the clients respond
so well,
really, really good to it. So to me, it's almost like, you have to kind of let go of this whole formal thought around what it should be and go with what works.
Yes.
There are just things that work that people respond to.
Yes.
And I liken it to, imagine if it was a surgeon that came to you, and was like, well, or you see it all the time when you see like these movies and everything, and people be like, oh man, we don't have the tools to save his life. So give me a pen real quick. I'm going to create a breathing tube for him or whatever it is. And people do it. In that moment, the dude that needs that is not saying, hold on. That's not in the textbook. They didn't
right.
In medical school, only thing that this is the intervention that's going to save my life. And I kind of liken that to, like people got to get away from the theoretical aspect of being a practitioner and what really works for the client. What does the client respond to?
Yeah.
Good point, Sarah.
So I'm going to add on to that, my thought to that, and this might again stir up some feathers, but if you think about it, and this could go for any profession, but I'm gonna keep it to therapy. So that's what I went into, right? If we have like 100 people that are going to school to become therapists with good intention, because they want to help heal and they want to, whatever, right? And they find out that when they become therapists, it's just not for them, right? And they're not having good success or whatever may happen, even though they had great intentions and they learned all the right strategies and theoretical concepts and all of those things, right? that's why for me, this is really more of a spiritual journey of like, I feel called to be a healer. I
Mm,
don't even personally like using the word therapist anymore
Mm,
because I don't utilize a lot, even though I have so much, knowledge in what I speak and, all these concepts that I learned from school. When I'm talking to someone, like I really throw all those things away. And it took me a long time to really say that confidently. I used to feel like a fraud, to be really, really honest. Shortly after working with you, Shannon, I went to go
mhm,
work for another private practice, and I remember I was the youngest clinician, and there was a room full of therapists that were like, I don't know, maybe like 22 at the time, and they were all like 40 plus, right? So they had great years of experience, and they were really
mhm,
powerful therapists. And we would go to our boardroom every Friday to have our, assessments of like how the week went, whatever, and we would have to like showcase, our
your
clients,
cases.
how we're
Yeah.
doing, and all the things. And I would get so nervous to talk because all of these clinicians who've been in the game for like 15 plus years, or 10 plus years would have like, oh, I used, Freudian theory, da, 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 on this client and it worked this way. And I'm over here like, I just asked them this and it works. And then I'm like, I don't know what theory that came about from. And I
Mhm,
would feel so nervous, like a fraud, like an imposter.
right.
Until luckily my supervisor at that time, she was super spiritual, and she was like, you just have a gift and you just have to own that. Like you
mm,
don't have to back up your what you did by theory if that's not what you did. And
mhm,
only until then did I have a little more courage to be like, oh, maybe this was just meant for what I'm supposed to be doing in life.
mm.
And schooling got me here, and I'm grateful for that. But schooling, like you said, Rob, just taught me what I already knew.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a reminder. Because even from subjects like math and science, when it's taught to you, it clicks. And the reason why it clicks, when you start to learn mathematics, 2 and 2 is 4. When it clicks, it's like, yeah, it does make sense. Like, how did I know that before?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's what teachers do. Teachers, in my opinion,
Mhm,
they lead you or guide you to a point to where you can see it for yourself. And once
Hmm.
you see it for yourself, that's when you start to get your wings, and you could probably take off from there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's a great process, man. God bless you for what you do.
Thank
I've listened to some of the testimonies that some of the sisters have put, and you are waking up. You're waking up so many people, especially in a time like tonight, like today, where there's despair, there's depression. People don't know where they're going to or fro. Like the phrase I used earlier. Most people don't know that they don't know, so they're
you.
walking around here blind. And if you can impart some sort of knowledge or some information or some awareness to them,
mhm.
man, you're doing a great service. So God bless you, Julissa, for real.
Thank you.
Yeah. Isn't it ironic being real makes a person feel like a fraud?
Yeah, right.
The irony of that.
Yeah.
Well, Jalisa, I have to say, I said it off camera. I'm extremely proud of you, and it's amazing to see your growth professionally
Thank you.
and personally. And I'm proud to have called you a colleague. You
How
know,
about
I'm excited for you, and I know your business will grow. Go ahead and plug your business. Give your social media handles if people want to get in contact with you.
Yeah.
If people want your coaching services.
Yeah. I'm gonna write it in the chat. I'll say it out loud too. So my Instagram handle is julissa.edwards_counseling. I spend most of my time there. And yeah, if you ever want to get in contact with me, definitely give my page a look. Feel my energy. If you feel like we could vibe, I always say like if you feel like we could be friends,
right,
then we would probably have a really good time healing together.
right.
And so that's pretty much what I do on my page. You will see me talking about everything, my kids, my dog, going to obedience training, like just my everyday life updates
Mm-hmm.
alongside trainings for psychoed and whatever may have you. The most recent thing that I have going on is my community calls, the next one being November 4th. If you go to my Instagram page and you go to the link in my bio, I have a link tree there. You could sign up for my free community calls. It's a wonderful place where we connect once a month, every first Friday of the month. And we just have some pop and ask conversations, to be quite honest. We have great, insightful, powerful conversations where we challenge the mind. I give you guys some education, and you do with it what you wish. And we have wonderful calls there. And if you want more information, you can always DM me. But all of my programs are, on my page that you could read more about. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jalisa Edwards. Thanks again. Appreciate everybody. See you next week on the No Idea. Oh, before I let you go, you're like literally one of the only guests that actually grasped the concept of no idea being original. So many people struggle with that, in part because I think of like their ego. Everybody wants to believe that they own something.
I did this.
And
Yes.
I created that. Not that somebody else had an idea at some point and a person took it and expanded on that. I don't know why for some people that's such a horrible thing, that somebody had a thought, a concept, or idea, you know, and they laid the foundation, and then you came along, you added something to it, and then somebody else added something to it, and then somebody else added to it. It's just a weird thing. So thank you for grasping the concept of no idea is original.
Hey, Jalisa, before you go, what was that book that you was going to show us?
Oh my God, yes, thank you. I have it right here. Yes. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Here it is.
I appreciate everybody for tuning in.
Deepak Chopra. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
You're saying it right.
The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. Powerful book. So powerful.
I'm gonna put that in my library. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody have a good evening. We'll catch you next week.
Peace.
Good, everybody.